One stolen watch, one hidden letter, and Damian Cross is thrust into a deadly chase where trust is a lie, family is a weapon, and the past could destroy the future he's fighting to protect. Damian Cross had always been a man of contradictions, brilliant yet brooding, gentle but shadowed by an intensity that unsettled those who dared to look too closely. At 34, his life seemed polished from the outside, a thriving career as an investigative journalist, a loft in a city that overlooked a restless skyline, and a reputation for exposing corruption that others were too afraid to touch. Yet beneath that crafted surface, Damian carried scars invisible to the world, scars no accolade or victory could erase. It began, as it always did for him, with the past. The sound of rain against glass tugged him back to memories he wished he could forget, a childhood defined by secrets, a father who vanished without explanation, and a mother who drowned herself in sorrow so deeply that she became a ghost long before death claimed her. Damian had promised himself he would never run from the truth, no matter how devastating it was. But that vow, once a shield, was slowly becoming the very chain binding him to dangers he couldn't yet see. On the night everything began to change, Damian had been chasing a lead that was supposed to be routine. A crooked real estate developer, whispers of fraud, a trail of documents hidden behind shell companies. He'd done this 100 times before. But when his source, the sharp-tongued and streetwise informant named Marcus Hale, slid a manila envelope across the bar table, Damian felt something shift. "This ain't just numbers and property deals, Cross," Marcus said, voice low, eyes darting toward the shadows in the corner. "You think you're digging into some petty scam, but this is blood money, and you're already in it deeper than you realize." Damian arched a brow, forcing calm. "You sound like you're about to write my headline for me." Marcus didn't smile. His hands trembled as he lifted his drink. "You don't get it. People who even breathe near this story disappear. Like your old man." The words landed like a punch to the chest. Damian's jaw tightened. "What do you know about my father?" But Marcus never answered. Before Damian could press, before the rain outside could ease, Marcus stood, muttered something about watching his back, and slipped into the night. The envelope remained, heavy with whatever secrets Marcus had decided were Damian's burden now. Damian's instincts screamed at him to walk away, to leave the envelope unopened, to return to the safety of the battles he understood. But he couldn't. Not when Marcus had dragged his father's ghost into it. Not when the faint, lingering hope that some long-buried truth could still be unearthed stirred inside him. He tucked the envelope into his coat and left. The following morning, Damian sat in his office, the city sunlight slicing through half-drawn blinds, the envelope spread open before him. Inside were documents that at first looked like standard financial records. But names began to leap out at him. Names tied to old scandals, political dynasties, and companies whose fingerprints stretched across industries. And then one name froze him completely. Damian hadn't spoken that name aloud in years. Eleanor, the woman who had been both his greatest love and his greatest loss. A romance that had burned too brightly, too recklessly, until betrayal shattered it. She had left without explanation, leaving Damian to piece together fragments of a heart that never quite healed. Why was her name in these files? The answer lay buried in layers of coded transactions, shell corporations, and signatures. But the implication was undeniable. Eleanor was tied to something far darker than Damian ever imagined. His phone buzzed, startling him. The screen flashed with a number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. A voice, soft yet deliberate, flowed through the line. "Damian," it whispered. "Stop looking. For your sake." The line went dead. Damian's pulse quickened. Few people had access to his private number, and fewer still knew he had the files. And the voice, it was distorted, but there was something hauntingly familiar about it. He couldn't place it, but it stirred an ache he couldn't ignore. He slammed the phone down, frustration and dread colliding in his chest. He knew what this meant. The story wasn't just about corruption. It was personal. It had claws in his past, his love, his very identity. That evening, Damien found himself in the old jazz lounge he hadn't visited in years. The kind of place where smoke curled lazily above low-lit tables and the air hummed with unspoken stories. He needed the solitude, the darkness, the illusion of safety. But fate had other plans. Because when the singer took the stage, her voice threaded through the air like velvet and knives. Damien's world collapsed. It was Eleanor. Her hair was shorter, her posture colder, but her voice, he'd know it anywhere. And when her gaze swept the crowd and landed on him, the brief flicker of recognition in her eyes sent a shiver through his bones. Their past was no longer buried. It was alive, breathing, and about to consume him. Damien sat in the quiet of his apartment that night, the city buzzing faintly through the cracked open window. The laughter of strangers rose from the street below, light, fleeting, careless. He envied them. His world felt too heavy, each thought a stone dragging him down. The dim glow of the lamp on his desk painted his notebooks in shades of amber. He flipped one open, fingers trembling as he traced the margins filled with frantic notes, sketches of faces, fragments of conversations. Every word was a clue he was too afraid to follow. Every scribble a reminder of the mysteries he could never let go. But then his eyes caught on a page he hadn't dared read for weeks. A single line, scrawled in his hurried hand. The night she left, nothing was as it seemed. He shut the notebook, heart racing. Memories of her, Elena, flooded back. The curve of her smile, the warmth in her voice, the fire in her eyes that matched his ambition, and the abrupt way it all had ended, leaving him gutted, confused, and betrayed. The shadows of that night still haunted him. The next day, Damien's life was yanked back into motion. His phone buzzed with a message, one that made his pulse spike. Unknown number. Meet me at the old pier, 9 p.m. Come alone. He stared at it, torn between fear and exhilaration. The pier was where he and Elena had once whispered dreams into the night sky. It was also where she had last been seen before she vanished from his world without explanation. He should delete the message, ignore it, move on. But he couldn't. By 9 p.m., Damien was there, the salt of the sea biting the air. The wooden boards creaked beneath his steps, each one echoing into the dark water below. His heart hammered as he scanned the empty stretch. Then, footsteps. He spun, breath catching in his throat. A woman stood in the shadows, coat drawn tight, face hidden by the dim glow of a broken lamp. The sight of her hit him like a punch. Elena, he whispered. The figure stepped closer. And yes, it was her. Pale, thinner than before, eyes darting as if every shadow carried a threat. Damien, she breathed, voice trembling. I didn't have a choice. The flood of anger, love, betrayal, and longing crashed over him all at once. You disappeared. You left me with nothing but questions. Why now? Why come back? Her gaze flicked over her shoulder, paranoia etched in every movement. Because they're watching. Because it's not over. Damien's confusion deepened. But before he could press further, she pressed something small and cold into his palm. A silver locket. Keep this safe, Elena whispered urgently. It holds everything. If they find out, I gave it to you. The sound of a car engine roared in the distance, headlights slicing through the fog. Elena's face drained of color. They've found me, she hissed. Damien run. Before he could stop her, she turned and fled down the pier. The approaching car screeched to a halt, and two men in dark coats spilled out, chasing her into the night. Damien stood frozen, the locket burning in his fist. His world had just cracked open, and he was standing at the edge of something far bigger and far deadlier than he had ever imagined. The days that followed blurred into a storm. Damien couldn't sleep, couldn't think of anything but the locket. He turned it over again and again, searching for answers. It looked ordinary, its chain tarnished, its clasp stubborn. But inside was a tiny folded scrap of paper, worn and fragile. On it were just 3 words, handwritten in Elena's hurried script. Trust no one. It wasn't much, but it was enough to ignite a fire in Damien. She was in danger. He was in danger. And whoever they were watching. Yet beneath all the fear, something else stirred. Hope. Elena hadn't abandoned him after all. She had been forced into this nightmare. And now, somehow, they were bound together again. Weeks later, Damien's path crossed with someone unexpected. Sophia Kane, a brilliant yet guarded journalist known for unearthing stories that toppled entire empires. She approached him in a quiet cafe, sliding into the seat across from him without invitation. "You've been asking questions about Elena," she said flatly, eyes sharp as blades. Damien tensed. "How do you know that?" "Because the people chasing her are the same ones who've been following me. And trust me, if you keep digging alone, you won't last long." Her words dripped with warning, but also with an unspoken offer. For the first time, Damien realized he wasn't entirely alone in this. Yet trust was dangerous. Elena's message echoed in his mind. Trust no one. Could he risk it? The tension between Damien and Sophia became a thread that pulled tighter with every meeting. She was daring, secretive, with a spark that unsettled him. Their late-night strategy sessions often blurred into something more, moments of vulnerability, of connection. Still, Damien's heart belonged to Elena. Even in her absence, her memory weighed heavily, haunting every decision. Caught between past and present, love and survival, truth and deception, Damien felt his world spiraling. And as part one reached its close, the suspense loomed larger than ever. Because one evening, as he returned home, he found his apartment door ajar. Inside, the place had been ransacked, but it wasn't the overturned furniture or scattered papers that froze his blood. It was the message scrawled on the wall in red ink. "You should have stayed out of it, Damien." And beneath it, pinned with a knife, was a photograph of Elena. Alive, terrified, watching him. The night Damien discovered the message scrawled across his apartment wall, he didn't sleep. Not one wink. His fingers shook as he held the photograph of Elena, her wide, fearful eyes staring back at him. Someone had been inside. Someone dangerous. He paced the apartment, mind racing. Who would dare? The people who had chased Elena down at the pier? Or someone closer? Someone he didn't suspect? His heart thudded, a rhythm of dread that refused to be ignored. The next morning, he found Sophia waiting at the cafe, eyes scanning the street as if expecting him to arrive, surrounded by shadows. "They found you," she said simply, her voice low, "and they're not going to stop with a warning. They want Elena, and now they want you." Damien slammed his hand on the table. "I don't care. I'm not running anymore. Not from them. Not from my damn fear." Sophia studied him, her expression unreadable. "That's admirable and insane. You don't understand what they're capable of." He leaned forward. "Then show me. Teach me. Because I will not let them take her or anything else I care about without a fight." Her eyes softened slightly, but the tension never left her face. "You'll need allies, and you'll need to be ruthless. You're in over your head." Damien clenched his jaw. "Good. I've always preferred to be in over my head." Over the following days, Damien and Sophia retraced Elena's last known steps. Each lead felt like stepping into a labyrinth, every corner hiding unseen threats. Security cameras, anonymous threats, coded messages, they were everywhere. One evening, they found themselves in a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Dust motes floated in the shafts of moonlight that pierced broken windows. Elena's last phone ping had been traced here. "Stay sharp," Sophia whispered, handing him a compact flashlight and a small folding knife. "I don't like this place. Not one bit." They crept through shadows, their footsteps echoing against rusted metal and shattered glass. Then a soft noise, a whisper, caught Damien's attention. "Elena," he called, voice trembling. A figure darted from the darkness. He caught her arm before she disappeared again. Relief surged through him, but it was short-lived. "Elena, thank God. Are you okay?" She shook her head, tears streaking her face. "No, I'm not okay. They've been following me for months. They know everything. If I get caught, Damien," her voice broke. Damien tightened his grip. "I won't let that happen. I swear it." Behind them, footsteps echoed. Slow, methodical. They weren't alone. The next few days became a whirlwind of strategy, evasion, and uncovering hidden truths. Damien realized that Elena had been a pawn in something far larger than a personal vendetta. Corruption, illegal dealings, and power plays had ensnared her. And now, those same forces were hunting him. Yet amid the fear and tension, something else grew between them. Quiet moments, fleeting glances, shared silences. They were fragile threads of intimacy amidst chaos. One night, after narrowly escaping a trap in an abandoned parking structure, Elena pressed herself against him. "Why are you risking everything for me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Damien brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Because no one touches you and gets away with it. And because I've realized I'm done pretending I don't care." Her lips met his in a kiss that was desperate, fierce, and tender all at once. It was a promise, a warning, a confession. The world around them could fall apart, but in that moment, it didn't matter. But peace was fleeting. The mysterious forces closed in faster than Damien could anticipate. One evening, as they were preparing to leave the city for a safer location, their hideout was ambushed. Cars screeched outside, and masked men poured in. Sophia shouted, "Split up, now!" Damien grabbed Elena, bolting through the back exit into the rain-soaked alleyways. Bullets kicked up dirt and shattered glass around them. He kept moving, adrenaline surging, until they found temporary shelter in an abandoned subway tunnel. "Elena, listen to me," Damien said, his chest heaving. "We can't stay here. We need a plan. We need to hit them before they hit us again." Her hands trembled as she held his. "I trust you. I always have, Damien. But I'm scared, so scared." He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm right here. And I'm not letting go. Not now. Not ever." Days turned into a tense cat-and-mouse game. Damien traced financial records, secret accounts, and illicit dealings tied to the people pursuing Elena. Every discovery was a puzzle piece, and every wrong move could cost lives. During one daring infiltration of a corporate office connected to the threat, Damien uncovered evidence of a conspiracy that went higher than he imagined. Politicians, business tycoons, and law enforcement officials were all tangled in a web of corruption. Sophia leaned over the evidence, whispering, This is huge. We could bring them all down." Damien's eyes were steely. "We will, but we do it on our terms. Carefully, one step at a time." Yet even as they planned, Damien couldn't shake the creeping suspicion that someone close to them might be betraying them. Elena's warnings echoed in his mind. Trust no one. One night, Damien returned to their safe house to find a letter slipped onto the door. The handwriting was unmistakable. "I know what you're doing. Stop, or she dies." A chill ran down his spine. He knew they were being watched, but this was personal. Someone had been inside their sanctuary. He turned to Sophia. "We can't stay here. Not another night. We move now." She nodded, her expression grim. "I've got a friend in the city outskirts. A cabin. Remote. No cameras, no trails. We can regroup there." As they drove into the night, Damien kept a hand on Elena's, feeling the warmth, the reality, the fragile trust that had become their lifeline. "This is far from over," he murmured. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. "I know, but with you, maybe it can be." The rain streaked across the windshield, blurring the city lights into ribbons of neon and shadow. Damien's mind raced with plans, contingencies, and strategies. They were hunted, but they were not defeated. And deep inside, a fierce determination burned. No one would take Elena from him. No one would break what they had fought so hard to reclaim. The night was long, the roads uncertain, but Damien Cross had never felt more alive, more purposeful, or more ready for the storm that was coming. The cabin was quiet, almost eerily so. Damien stood by the window, scanning the forested outskirts for any sign of movement. Elena sat across the small living room, clutching a mug of coffee, her eyes haunted but determined. "We can't stay here long," Damien said, voice low. "They're going to trace us eventually. We need to hit them first, a preemptive strike. Take out their network before they take us out." Elena's fingers trembled on her mug. "And what if we fail?" Damien walked over, kneeling beside her. "Then we fight. But we don't fail. Not now, not ever. I promised you that." She gave a small, shaky smile. You always keep your promises. The next 48 hours were a blur. Damien and Sophia coordinated with trusted allies, hacking into financial records, gathering evidence, and mapping out the locations of those responsible for hunting Elena. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the conspiracy: a corporate magnate, a corrupt politician, and a network of enforcers who had been silently controlling every move Elena had made. Finally, the plan was set. They would strike at the gala, an annual charity event held by the magnate, where the key players would all be present. With cameras, press, and high-profile clients, there would be no hiding, no escaping accountability. The gala shimmered under chandeliers and flashing cameras, a glittering mask for the darkness beneath. Damien, dressed sharply in black, felt the weight of the night press against him like a physical force. Elena stayed close, her hand brushing his as they moved through the crowd. "There," Sophia whispered, nodding toward a table where the magnate and politician were laughing over champagne. The enforcers loitered nearby, scanning the room, unaware of the storm about to descend. Damien's heart pounded. Every step had been calculated, but the stakes couldn't have been higher. One mistake, one misstep, and Elena wouldn't walk out alive. He slipped a USB drive from his jacket pocket and handed it to Elena. "Upload this to the network feed in 5 minutes. Every transaction, every bribe, every illegal deal we've documented, public. The world will see it." She swallowed hard but nodded. "Got it." At exactly 9:17 p.m., the gala screens flickered. Financial records, emails, and photographs of bribes and illicit contracts filled every large monitor. The room froze. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into panic. Security scrambled, the magnate's face paled, and the politician froze. Damien didn't flinch. He stepped forward, voice firm, resonating over the chaos. "You've spent years manipulating, cheating, and threatening people. Tonight, that ends. Everyone here is now accountable." The enforcers reached for their radios, but before they could act, Damien's allies, people Elena had secretly contacted during their weeks on the run, emerged from the crowd, blocking exits, disabling communications. The net had closed. The magnate tried to flee, but security, now on Damien's side thanks to prior arrangements, intercepted him. Handcuffs clicked. The politician's face was drained of color as the press captured every moment. Damien's pulse raced, but he didn't waver. After the chaos subsided, Damien and Elena stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city. The night was calm now, almost peaceful. "You did it," Elena whispered, resting her head against his shoulder. "We did it," Damien corrected. "Together." She lifted her eyes to his. "I was so scared I'd lose you." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You'll never lose me. Not to them, not to anyone." A breeze swept across the balcony, carrying the faint scent of rain and city lights. Damien pulled her close. "We survived because we trusted each other, because we refused to give in to fear. And now we get to live, really live." Elena kissed him, soft at first, then with all the passion and relief pent up from weeks of terror. It was a kiss that spoke of survival, trust, and love hardened in fire. The days after the gala were a new beginning. Damien and Elena worked to rebuild not just their lives, but the systems of justice Damien had uncovered. Whistleblower protections were enacted, lawsuits filed, and the corrupt network dismantled piece by piece. Damien's name became known not just for courage, but for his relentless pursuit of truth and fairness. He returned to his workshop, to tools and projects, to the quiet life he'd always longed for, but with Elena by his side. She helped with the business, but more importantly, she helped him remember why he fought, why he survived. One morning, as they sat on the porch of their modest home, sunlight streaming across the yard, Damien checked his watch. The Rolex gleamed, a symbol not of wealth or power but of time. Time reclaimed, time earned, time to love and live without fear. Elena leaned against him, whispering, "We did it. We're free." Damien wrapped his arm around her. "Yeah, and this time it's ours. All ours." The past was gone. The threats were neutralized. The betrayal is exposed. And finally, after months of running, hiding, and fighting, Damian Cross had everything he had ever truly wanted: justice, love, and the freedom to live on his terms. As the sun rose, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Damian held Elena close, knowing that whatever storms came next, they would face them together. And this time, they would win, not because of luck or planning alone, but because they refused to let fear rule their lives. They were survivors. They were free. And most importantly, they were together.